Hello and welcome to Level 10 Contractor Daily Podcast. I am your host, Rich Harshaw, as usual. Today I have a special guest with me. It is Katya Hill. She is from Lace AI. And you may be thinking, what is Lace AI? It's got AI in the name. Well, it is yet another AI-oriented software stack thing. And this one is really, really, really cool. Okay, now I've brought you probably five or six AI products. Some of them I felt really, really good about. I want you to know about them. This fits into that category of things that you actually need to be using. That's why I've invited Katya on here. So with that brief intro, Katya, welcome to the podcast. How you doing?
Good. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Yeah, I think we saw each other just last week at a conference. Is that right?
Yep, absolutely. That was great. Great to see you in person.
Yeah, after a while, you go to all these conferences and it's like the same 87 people.
It's almost a reunion every time you see each other. It's
Yeah, well, where will I be next week? I'll be a fast remodeler.
we will be too.
Yeah, by the time people listen to this podcast, it may have been in the past, but regardless, I think that's a great fit for you guys. Obviously, fast remodeler, talking about technology plays, and this really fits into that category. Before we continue, just mention that you're the head of partnerships, uh, and
In
partnerships
marketing.
and what?
Yeah.
Yeah, marketing. Okay. So just want to give a little context for who you are. So let's just open this up with the very basic starting question. Lace AI, what is it? It has to do with call centers
Yep.
and using AI to, figure out what your people are doing right and wrong. Go ahead and give us the quick overview and then we'll dig in.
Yeah, absolutely. So we as a company try to solve for the problem of like what's happening in your call center. It's typically this black box, and everybody views call center as this back of the office machine within your organization. And we actually firmly believe that the call center is your front lines. If you don't know what's going on, if you don't know what to do, then you're not going to book more jobs. So what we do is work with companies in home improvement and in home services. We analyze 100% of the phone calls in their call center, not 5%, not 15 when you're doing it manually, 100% of the calls. So you know everything going in and out of your company. You know how many calls you actually booked, how many were actually qualified. And then we show you what's happening with those calls. Why didn't they get booked? How can I make more revenue? We show you the top objections that your CSRs are dealing with and are struggling to overcome. A lot of the times it's something like service fee concerns, availability, there's a few other objections that come up. We show you those specific ones. We show you the CSRs that are specifically struggling with them, and then how to overcome them.
Okay, now I think it's important to point out, probably should have done this before, that Lace AI works specifically in the home improvement and home services industry. So that's going to be your interior and exterior modelings, roofing, siding, windows, gutters, bathrooms, kitchens, sunrooms, stuff like that. Then it's going to be HVAC, plumbing, electric, and so
Electric,
forth.
garage, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I want to point that out because I want people to know that when you guys are your product is looking at the data, I mean, AI is only as good as it's been trained, right?
Yeah.
I think we're far enough into the AI thing that people know that, it's kind of garbage in, garbage out,
Yeah.
good content in, good content out. So the fact that you continually train on this industry, I think is going to be helpful. Now, let me ask you a question about that. I would assume, and I would be shocked if you said otherwise, that every single one of your clients' data is proprietary and kept, siloed off, so it's not being accessed. But in the background is the program learning collectively from all of the clients, and then injecting that knowledge into
Exactly.
any.
That's exactly it. And that's been why we've been so successful in home services and home improvement because we're laser focused on them. We understand how they work. We know what's happening in them. We can show you that data and we continuously refine it, right? We have customers, we've been around for about 2.5 years. We have customers consistently come in saying, I think this is the piece that I want to see more of. I want to know about my maintenance program and how that works. Okay, now we know that this is a piece of information that is more valuable and maybe valuable to some of the other businesses as well. So it's continually re-ingesting that data. And obviously, we make sure privacy is followed and all of that, but making sure that it's laser focused on what's important for this businesses and not some watered down version of that.
Okay, now when you did the introduction, you leaned really heavy into it. It's analyzing all the calls. You said, I
Yep.
believe, I'm quoting, I believe, not just 5%, but
Nope.
all of them. Why did you say it like that? Are there other products that are doing just a small subset, or what's the deal?
Yeah, a lot of so what we often see is people saying, well, we actually do a sample, right? That is somebody manually listening to the phone calls. That's kind of our standard starting point for a lot of the businesses. Even as they're scaling, they're not really seeing that as an opportunity to improve. And the problem is when you're making decisions based on 5% of the calls that your call center manager or your QA person that they have analyzed, you're actually making the decisions on the 95% that didn't get analyzed, and you are not able to be as nimble and as flexible. So we
Okay.
one of the first objections we often hear is that, oh, I actually have somebody that, listens to a few calls a week. That's great, but you're making the decisions effectively on the rest of the calls that
Okay.
that
So I'm going to just kind of pause here and draw a conclusion. So I think what you're really saying is, first of all, if you're not analyzing your calls at all, that's dumb. You need to do it. But then, second of all, let's assume that people are. You're suggesting moving from a manual spot checking to an AI comprehensive check. Um, and look, we're going to talk a little bit later about other competitive products because I think it's important that people understand because
Yeah,
realistically, there is a lot of AI plays
yeah.
coming into this space. So we'll get to that a little bit later. But I would assume that other similar kinds of products are also going to be comprehensive from that perspective. So it's really a matter of, yeah, it's nice that Linda is back there or George is back there listening to some calls, but we need to move past that
That's
to
not
this.
that's not a solution. Yeah, you can make and another I think thing that affects is if you're doing that manually, you're normally doing that maybe once a week, maybe once a month. When this is done automatically, every call you're doing, you have that insight and you can take an action on it right now, not next week. So you're able to be more nimble. We have customers who, because they saw the objection of availability come up so much, they quickly switched up the schedules for their technicians to be able to go out at different times and they quickly resolve that. You cannot do that if you're spot checking it once a week.
Yeah, okay. So let's lean a little bit in this conversation into remodeling. Some of the examples you've used so far have been home services, which is great. We've got a lot of home services people that listen, but I think percentage-wise, it's going to be more remodelers. So one of the things so I'm going to back up and I'm going to throw a kind of a use case scenario. I want you to then comment vis-a-vis Lace AI, okay?
Yeah.
So we're an agency and we generate leads through SEO, which is organic. We also generate leads through pay-per-click, Facebook, to a lesser direct response extent from TV and radio. But we get these leads coming in, and it's pretty common that we'll do a spot check of listening to calls that particularly that are recorded from pay-per-click because the pay-per-click platforms make that very, very easy to do and to
Hmm.
to to monitor that.
Hmm.
One of the things that we see a lot is that in the spot checking, and again, we're just spot checking, okay? We're like Linda and George in the previous example, but we're seeing that the calls are just handled very, very poorly
Hmm.
almost always. So here would be my top probably two or three off the top of my head. This is not research, but off the top of my head. Number one, they're actually answering the call way less than they think they are. So
Yep.
right off the bat, like, hey, maybe you're awesome, but you're missing like 37% of calls or something like you're not even getting them. So that would be
Yep.
one. Number two would be they're getting them but they're hurried because perhaps it's a peak call situation and so they're trying to rush through it and just do the minimum of get it scheduled and get to the next thing. And I would say number three is probably just doing a crappy job of making the customer feel seen and heard and listened to.
Yep.
So that's kind of my opening salvo on this. How will this help solve those problems? I think it's obvious, but I want to know like the nitty
Yeah.
gritty with Lace AI versus just, hey, now you're not answering the phone as much. Here's an
Yeah.
idea, answer the phone more.
No, absolutely. And I think the home improvement is such a great space because each call is so valuable. You're not looking at, 5, 7, 10K jobs most of the time. You're looking at 30, 40, 50K tickets. So when you miss those calls, that's a lot of revenue and money that you're leaving on the table without even trying to get it. So what we help with is really leveling that playing field because it's so objective. Every CSR is getting analyzed. Every call is getting analyzed. You can't say, well, actually, I did not think that was qualified call because this guy wanted a bathroom remodel, but like later on, so I didn't know how to talk about this. you don't get to do this because it's leveled out across every single person. The second piece that's really helpful is the playbook. We typically have the company, if they have their own playbook and they have their own, script that they want to follow, and most of our customers do, they upload that into Lace at the beginning. So we know what we're scoring against. And we're not just saying, like, hey, no, George, that was wrong. That's it. We show you why. Hey, you said this. This is what your playbook suggests. This is how you should have handled it. We also show you if you didn't do a good job on a certain objection, here's a few examples of other people on your team who have had the same objection, but were able to book the call. So as the actual person answering the phone, you can quickly change that up. You can make the change of, oh man, this is what I say, and this will help me book. I will try this now. I don't have to wait to get yelled at by my manager at the end of the week. I will fix this today.
Come on, managers, be nice. Okay, so I'm going to put this in terms that I think are going to make sense to the audience that's listening to this. So this sounds an awful lot like Rilla Voice or Zero, which are in-home sales recording and feedback tools, but for your call center.
That's
So
100%.
is that right?
We've actually had a few people who do use Rilla or Zero. They will come back, oh, you are Rilla for the call center. Yes, or Zero for the call center. Yes, absolutely. And we were just at Dave Yoho conference last week and talking about with Zero, we had a panel talking about how those can work together very conveniently and how it's, again, providing you that objectivity and that unbiased data across your entire experience with a customer.
So are the following statements true that you cannot use Rilla or Zero for call center, and also on the flip side, you can't use Lace AI for in-home sales?
We don't offer that for that. We only work with your call center right now, so we don't extend further than like once the job is booked, and that's kind of where we end our insight.
Okay, so ideally, you're gonna have two tools. You're gonna have either Zero or AI, or I'm sure there's others. Those are the two. I'm partial to Zero, but those two tools.
Yeah.
One of those two tools for in the home, but for your call center, we need this other tool.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you some nuts and bolts questions. So with Lace AI, it sounds like there's two different things that I would want it to do. The first one is I would want it to aggregate data and give me statistics on what percentage of calls were taken live, which percentage of calls were converted, which percentage of calls were not, and then also doing a by CSR. Is that the right word? CSR?
Yeah.
CSR by CSR analysis of the same data so that I could just get a leaderboard and a scoreboard that says, here's how we're doing.
Yeah.
No commenting, just here's the data. And then taking that data and having the AI provide comments, feedback, training, etc. So is it going to do both of those things, the data set and the recommendations, or is it more just a recommendation tool?
So it's both to an extent. We're not going to show you how many live calls you've taken because again, we connect to your dialer or your CRM. So think Five9, ServiceTitan. We connect to something that's already recording that call, which on one hand makes the onboarding and the implementation part super easy, but we're not sure if you didn't answer the call at all and it went, to the voicemail, we're capturing that call came in, but we're not capturing, hey, this CSR messed up and didn't answer that phone call. We are showing you per CSR, here's how many calls they've answered, here's how many of those were qualified, here's how many that they've booked without any commentary. You know exactly how your team stacks
up. Is this on a dashboard or something?
Yeah.
Okay, so I can go on a dashboard. If I've got 5 CSRs, I can go in there and see here's how each of them did in terms of calls.
Yep.
And this is for inbound or outbound, right?
Yep, both. You can filter. You can if you want, you can see just the inbound. If you want, you can see just the outbound, but you can see the aggregate as well. And then we show you, here's the calls that, they were qualified that they've taken. Here's how many that they've booked. Here's the objections that they struggled with. Here's where they need help.
So missed calls, then you're telling me, I think I heard you say this, that no, your ServiceTitan or CRM should track that.
Yeah. Whatever if you're using we only work with companies who either using a dialer or something that's already recording the phone conversation. Okay. We don't record your phone conversation.
Okay. So you're going to give me data on how well the individual reps are doing, but in terms of missed calls, that's something that my CRM should be tracking.
It will show you that. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Because, when I went back to my use case, I was like, man, you guys aren't even freaking answering your phone as much as you think you are.
Separate problem. I mean,
okay.
Yeah. You
Okay,
should
so let's
you should be able to see that really easily within your dialer or CRM, whatever you're using to actually
So let's
record it.
dive into this then. So, right, thank you for that clarification. So we're talking about analyzation. Is that the right word? Analyzing,
Analysis?
analyzation? I don't think that, I think I made up that word. So it's analyzing the inbound and or outbound. So let's talk about inbound for just a minute because look, outbound is super, super important. I'm not going to minimize that, but I want to talk about inbound because I'm talking about setting leads for people that are freaking trying to get in touch with you. Like they're
Yep.
proactively getting a hold of you. And this is a big frustration for me.
Yeah,
Again,
of
because
course. You made already so much all this money trying to get those phones to ring, and then when they ring and nothing is happening,
yeah, and
that's
then guess what they say? They come to me and they're like, "Hey, we're not getting enough leads." I'm like, "Yeah, actually, you probably would if you would, just handle this better, answer the calls one, and then, handle them better." So let's talk about this. What are some of the major common themes that you're seeing, the ways that people mess up that your system is catching and then retraining on?
yeah. So one of the things that we always highlight that actually kind of usually is the part where companies come to us and like, I think if I need some help here, is this point where they started everybody wants leads, and that's great. You should want leads. That's how you get jobs, right? But then you start spending a lot of money on leads, and the cost of the lead starts going up, or the quality of leads is not improving because everybody's dumping so much money into trying to get more and more and more and more, and you end up with extremely high cost of acquisition for those leads. So your profits are actually not growing as much as you think they are. And you end up with, okay, we're just bleeding money left and right, even though we're trying to spend all this money on leads and we technically have the leads, but then nothing happens. So this idea that like all you need is leads, and you do to an extent, but then once you have that flow and you see we also show you the qualified, right? So how many of the stuff that you're getting through your call center, get into your call center, how many of that is actually just junk, right? So you can see the qualified amounts, and you can trace that back, to
So
some to
do you know what some of the major problems are that you're seeing? If you don't, that's okay. But if you do, I'd be interested to know what they are. It's like, oh, we see that consistently sales reps are, I'm making stuff up. I don't even know what they would be. They're going to the set too fast without giving information for or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that we've seen. One, I feel like the biggest objection that everybody has a hard time overcoming is price. How do you talk about price that actually converts and without scaring everybody? And some of that is language. Some of it is like you're not, especially in home improvement, right? You're not saying cost, you're saying an investment. Your nice kitchen is an investment. It's not just this is going to cost you $50,000. Then the second piece is being almost, and it's funny coming from an AI company, but it's not sounding robotic, right? It's not, okay, great, you're booked, you're good to go, right? It's that reassurance. This will be a great experience. We are here to bring value to you and to make your home better. Nobody wants to be sold to, right? Even people calling you, they don't want to be sold to. So it's
Well,
creating that relationship, and that's what we've seen as well of like people who, interestingly enough, people who talk faster tend to have a better close rate. I think they come off a little bit more confidently. Companies that are able to on the phone confirm or involve other family members. Usually, if it's a husband calling, making sure the wife will be there for an appointment, that there's a conversation that was had will help you as well. We obviously can't help you, how to get the wife on the phone, but we can help you showcase that, hey, spousal objection is something that comes up a lot, and let's fix that in your script.
okay, so let's run a hypothetical here. Company has three CSRs, and um, we identify that 50% of the time there's a price objection. I'm making that up. It could be higher or
Yeah,
lower. And then we see that rep number one is able to convert those to appointments 90% of the time. Rep two is only converting them 70% of the time, and rep three is only converting them 50% of the time. So we got a pretty massive difference. So will the
yeah.
system then look at rep one, who's doing a 90% conversion, analyze what they're doing, and then curate clips or something like that of say, okay, hey, rep two and three, listen to this.
Pretty much, yes. So you'll see for like the suggestion for the rep that's struggling the most, you'll see, hey, listen into these clips from these other people that have converted these types of calls with the same objections, and we'll give you the timestamp of this is when the person brings up the fact that they have a problem, and this is how he handles it or
So
she.
does Lace AI work like a true AI agent, where I can go and ask it specific questions and have it pull up specific things?
No, no, we're not quite there yet. I think down the line, that's what we'll get to. And I think especially with the explosion of AI agents on the market, that's kind of where everything is going. But right now you just kind of have the set. It's not a conversation that you're having, but it's pretty easy to get to some of those
Okay.
insights.
Because here's what I can see happening. Like this seems like a pretty likely thing to happen. So we got these multiple reps. And I'm jumping from example to example, but I'm just trying to think of all the different things.
Yeah.
And I can see you said one thing is that they sound robotic, and I interpreted that as they don't have enough personality. Okay,
Mhm.
so they're just kind of a wet blanket on the phone. Okay, that's like the last thing you want.
Yeah.
So if we identify that and we're like, hey, this person is not very personable,
Mhm.
then maybe so like in the future when it's an AI agent, but currently when it's not, I can just go over to ChatGPT and I could be like, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to, this is the word that I use. I picked it up from Alex Hormozy. It's like I want to operationalize having a personality that's pleasing on the phone. And then it'd be like,
Mhm.
hey, give me 10 specific things that make a person personable when they're on the phone. And then it
Yeah.
might say things like, they say hello. They ask how you're doing. They ask questions about you personally. They talk faster, which is something that you just said. They, whatever the 10 things are,
Yeah.
then we can come back and we can train on very hyper specific things. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, you need to be more personable. And the person is sitting there listening to it going, yeah, but see, the problem is I'm not personable. And so you're assuming that by telling me that I'm going to know how to do it. So like we need
Yeah.
to create a training module.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a fantastic example. And especially if you're just going like be more personable. It's like telling somebody to calm down, that never leads to anybody actually
Yeah, yeah,
calming
yeah.
down.
Okay.
I think that's where you have flexibility with your script, right? And we encourage you to make sure that the call center manager, who is kind of heading this whole operation in this case, they are very involved with their script, right? They can say, okay, now I know how to specify that Mark should be more personal. It's say these things, and we will then track against that. We will say, hey, Mark is not really following this section where we're talking about being personable and being and creating that connection. We'll highlight for you. So as a call center manager, you can see that insight. I mean, CSR will see it as well, and
Can
they can
Lace AI create scripts that generate
no,
in real time?
no, so we don't create scripts. We do, and that's another interesting fact that comes up a lot. We do near real time, so not real time, near real time. There's about like 5 minute delay for the call analysis, and we purposefully went with that model. We kind of had a choice at the beginning of do we go live script, live kind of edits and changes, or live analysis, or do we do this 5 minutes later? And the reason we went with that option is to really we're not trying to change you on a call. There's companies that do that and focus on that, and that
Yeah, that
there's
could create its own set of problems.
right. But we wanted to not give you very high level watery feedback. We wanted you to understand how the entirety of the call went. There might be something you brought up later that really impacted it. To give you that kind of cohesive understanding of the call, not just here's some band-aids you can quickly slap on it. So that's why we focus on you having it in near real time. We also, if there's calls, especially home improvement, this is huge with how big those tickets are. If there's a call that was high value, right? So somebody wants the whole thing redone, the whole bathroom or the whole kitchen, it's a high price ticket, and that call doesn't get booked, we will send you an email to the call center manager or whoever is the point of contact almost immediately saying, hey, jump back on this call, try to get this
Okay,
customer
so it'll
back.
flag times when the
We
guy
will flag
messed
exactly,
up.
like, hey, jump on this right now, get it back.
Okay,
This
that's
is what
useful.
went wrong. Yeah.
Is there a way to set the threshold of when it will
You can
notify you versus
specify,
when it won't?
yeah, you can specify what high value means to you, right?
Yeah,
Because
you don't want to get emails every 10 seconds because they, flubbed
right,
some minor
exactly.
thing.
You can specify like this is what means high value to us. And as you know, like that would mean different things in home improvement versus home services.
Okay, so give me some examples of some results that you've seen from the companies that are using this.
Yeah, so a great example of ours is like Carefree Home Pros. They're a huge company. They were doing pretty well before even starting with Lace. They weren't kind of completely in the dark, but they hit the point where they wanted to understand how to have that next kind of jump in revenue, how to optimize a little bit more, how to get a little bit more visibility, and they were struggling with that piece. And the thing with Lace that I personally love the most is actionability. We're not giving you a data dump of information that then you're like, oh man, now I have to figure out what to do with this. We're not trying to overwhelm you with anything. We're trying to give, hey, you have 5 minutes today to do something on your call center. Here's what you do, and here's who you coach, and here's how. So they really quickly jumped into that. So within the first 2 months, they saw a 35% increase in their net sales. They saw some of their sales folks doubling their sales numbers and booking numbers from before. And that's, again, you didn't hire anybody, so there's no hiring expense, right? There is no more additional marketing expense. This is the revenue that was already yours. We're just sort of helping you
So you're
unlock,
saying just through booking more calls from the existing pool of
because they knew
available.
what to fix. Yeah, they were able to, they didn't get a higher volume of leads. They just booked the ones that they had a lot at a higher rate because they knew what to do.
So let me just say this in different terminology. It's getting the main benefit of what you're talking about is increasing the set rate.
Yeah,
Whatever happens in the house, that's between the sales manager and Zero. But your job is to make sure you've got more appointments set so
from
that
you
there,
got.
there's more opportunities to go out and
Yeah,
hopefully
to,
close.
to go out and do that. Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so is that the number one metric that should be measured for the
yes.
overall success of Lace AI is like, what is our set rate?
What is this that? Yep. And we show you that, like, that's front and center. You open, you can't miss it. That's your first and foremost what you see and what you track over time. You can filter it by inbound, outbound. You can filter it by location and whatnot.
How long does it take to get results? Like, is it 2 weeks? And here's what I'm really asking. Like, you're going to fix 80% of the problem, and then there's going to be 20%, fine tuning, and that last
Yeah,
20% takes a little bit longer.
yeah,
How long does it take for the first 80%, like where you solve the major part of the problem? How long does that take?
yeah.
Is it a week? Is it a month? Is it a
It
year?
depends. It depends on the size. It doesn't not a year, but it depends on the size of a company. For sure. I would say the first kind of huge batch of improvement you'll see within a month. And then
Okay.
within 2 months, a lot of our customers, that's kind of like, we've had companies who within 2 weeks had phenomenal results. It depends on how motivated your call center is as well, right? If your call
Yeah, I
center
mean,
is,
there's a certain element of you get out of it what you put into it.
but I would say within 2 months, you'll know. Like, you will see a huge improvement in what's happening. I will do
Okay.
it this month, especially if they're bigger, on making sure everybody's aligned, everybody understands what to do, and you build that habit. Within 2 months, you know what's happening.
Okay, so after 1 month, in most cases, again, I know that it's going to vary.
Yeah,
Results may vary, but month one, you're going to see some significant improvement. After 2 months, you're
you
going to hit
see.
probably that 80% where it's like, hey, this is obvious, it's major. Yeah, we've got some fine tuning. We can make this better in the future, but
You
two
kind of
months.
you kind of see that hockey stick improvement. Yeah.
And
You
and
may
what
not be at 80% yet, but you're definitely seeing, like, okay, we're now fixing things in.
So what kind of improvement can people expect to see? And obviously it's going to depend on how they're doing now. If they're setting 30% now versus 90% now,
Yeah,
that's going to matter. But what
significant.
kind
Yeah.
of improvements are you seeing?
Yeah. We've seen anywhere between like 20 and 40% improvement on top
Okay,
of what
so
they already had.
let's
So
take the middle
especially,
part of that. You said 20 to 40. I'll take 30%. Okay.
yeah,
So here's what that means. Tell me if I got it right. I'm trying to verify this. 100 calls come in, and let's say that this company's not that great at setting appointments for whatever reason, and they're setting 50 out of 100.
yeah.
And look, everybody knows that different lead sources set at different rates and all of that. Okay. If you're getting them from aggregators, it's going to be lower. If you're getting them from canvassing, it's going to be higher. If you're getting them from TV, it's going to be even higher. So let's just say it's 50%. Okay.
Yeah.
For our example, you notice I like to run examples because I just like to see what the use case scenarios really are.
Yeah. Yeah. And make it
Okay.
real life.
So you're saying 30%. So 30% increase of 50 is going. So how do you want to do that math? 30, it's not, it goes from 50 to 80, which would be 30% raw increase. It would be a
You would
50%
get,
improvement.
we're talking about 30, like you would get from 50 to 80 if you're doing things well. We've seen
Well, that
companies.
can't be true though, right? Because if you're already at 80, you can't grow 30% because now you're at
No, if you're at
110.
80, you're not growing, right? There you're probably going like 10, 10, 15. The highest we've seen is 98%. Nobody's hitting 100. We have seen companies hit 98%, which is
Okay. So you're
phenomenal.
saying if I'm setting 50% now, I can expect this to go to 80% just by using this tool, following it and actually
Following
look.
it, doing the improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
we
You'll
all
see,
know that you can misuse even the best tool. We all,
if you
and if
never
you're that
open it,
person out there that uses the tool and screws it up, then that's on you.
if you onboard and you never open it, no, you're not going to see 80 in 2
Okay.
months. But if you put in the work of the coaching piece, yeah, you'll see that
Okay.
jump.
So here's what's tweaking my brain right now. And it's tweaked. By the way, I love this. This is why I wanted you on the call. I understood all of the things that we're talking about before we got on the call, but only on the macro 30,000 foot level. So thank you for bringing me down to the ground level and exploring it a little bit. But here's what's tweaking my melon. If you could set, I'm going to be more conservative than you because I'm not saying I don't believe you. I like being a little more conservative.
No, let's do
If you
it.
can raise your set rate from 50 to 60%, here's what that is. That's about an 18% increase. So if it used to be 50%, now it's 60%. So I used to get five, now I've got six. That's about an 18% lift.
Yep.
And all things being equal, you just increased your sales also by 18% by
Yep.
doing nothing more than having your call center handle the leads better.
Yep. So why
That's
wouldn't
incredible.
So why wouldn't you do it? And
Now,
here's an interesting part that you mentioned with the numbers, right? Of like, oh, okay, well, is it 30%? Is it 20% that you're increasing? A1 Garage is a great example of that. They probably increased there, and they're $300 million company, right? So for them, they weren't going from 50 to 80. They were going, from low 80s to mid 80s. But for them, you're at $300 million in dollars in revenue. Each percent, it's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So you improve that booking rate or yes, that set rate by 3, 4, 5%. That's a huge impact to your bottom line. So that's the other piece, especially if you're at that size of like 50, 60
yeah,
CSRs.
so let's be conservative here, okay? Here's how it works. And this is, you know how kids always say, why do I get to learn this in school? I'm never going to use that. Well, here's where you're going to actually use the algebra. And I don't know if I'm up to the task or not. I've got my calculator. So I'm going to run the numbers here. So let's say you're running 50% set rate and you get it up to 60% set rate. Okay.
Yep.
So out of 100 calls, you used to get 50 and now you get 60. And let's say that you close at 30%. So you used to close 15 and now you're going to close 30% of 60. That's going to be 18. So we got three more closes. And if let's just say we're at $15,000 average sale. Okay. So we got 15,000 times three. So we've got $45,000 more sales. Okay.
Yep.
Which is per 100
False.
incoming leads. Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe you got 1,000 a month, or maybe you've only got 50 a month, whatever it is. Okay.
Right.
Now let's overlay on that using a product like Xero, where we're now going to increase our close rate by 10% also.
Mhm.
And I don't even mean from 30% to 40%. I just mean a 10% lift from 30 to 33.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we've gone from 60, we went from 50 to 60, 60 times 33. I'm going to be a little more aggressive. I'm going to make it 35. So we got 60 times 35%. So now we got 21. So we went from 15 in the base case, 50 sets because they're not using Lace AI and they're stupid. That was me being blunt. This is falling into the category of if you don't do this, you're dumb. I don't know any other way to say it. And then we're also going to overlay on that using a tool like Xero to increase your closing ratio. So now we've got 21 times 15,000. We've got 315,000 versus the base case of 15 times 15,000 is 225. So we got a $90,000 lift per 100 leads.
Which is,
Well, that sounds pretty good.
that sounds like a lovely little bump in your revenue. Yeah.
Well, here's the funny thing about this. Okay. Yes, on the call center side, you're going to have to take the information that comes in and you're going to have to actually train people to do better because the tool can only point out where you're weak and give you specific training. Okay. And the same thing is true with Xero. It can only tell you where you're weak, but I've
You
got,
gotta do the work. Yep.
yeah, but if you do this, like that work is not that hard, is what I'm trying to say.
No, no.
It's kind of like,
And it gives you idea, right? Like this is what you should have said, right? Here's good examples. You're not going blind saying, hey, Matt, this is not good, do better. Here's what works.
this is kind of like let's say I'm out of shape and I need to lose 30 pounds and I need to gain muscle mass, whatever. And so I have an AI agent analyze me, do the blood test and all that. And it says, hey, look, here's what you need to do. You need to do 20 push-ups. You need to do this strength exercises with bands. You need to do cardio on the treadmill for this speed, for blah, blah, blah. And you need to eat these things and not eat these things. And then if you just do that, it's not easy to do that, but at least you know
No,
precisely what to do. Okay,
yeah,
so this is going to tell you precisely what to do. If you
yeah.
don't execute on it, then you're a sucky manager and you deserve all the lack of success that's coming your way. But if you do it, here's where I'm going with this. This is why I'm so excited about this. It's like you're going to raise your sales in this example by $90,000 per 100 incoming leads without having any more leads.
Right.
You're going to be running a few more appointments because you're setting more,
Which
and
is good.
it's just free freaking money.
It's the money you already should have had. You already made the hard thing of making those calls ring and those calls being qualified. There is zero reason the qualified calls don't get booked.
Now, let's go down the path a little bit. Let's say that you are doing this, you're making the course corrections, and your team is now awesome. So now the big thing is, okay, making sure that people are sticking with it because people get
Yep.
lazy over time, and also helping to train the new people so they get up to speed quicker. Yes,
Yep.
no?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right, I'm sold. I'll take three, please. Tell us how much this costs.
So we do per CSR per month pricing. It's very simple. It's $299 a month per CSR. So think of it, you book that CSR, books one more call a month, and I promise you they'll do more than that. They pay for it and then some.
Okay, and can you do this as little as like for a smaller company that only has one or two CSRs? Is that okay, or do you have a minimum?
We started about three. That's kind of what we've seen like a sweet spot for the floor, because that's when you have enough call volume. That's where at that point, your George or your Linda are not able to listen to the call volume and enough of that volume to really make any decisions anymore. And you kind of really can utilize the insights for the best. So we have some companies that have two, but we've seen three is kind of a great starting point.
What if I only have one? Will you still take me as a client or no?
Course, if you would like to, we are always happy to take customer that's interested in benefiting for sure.
Well, and here's why I'm asking because I do know some companies that are not huge, but they're let's say 10 million or more, in
Yeah,
that range, but they're high ticket. So it may be kitchen
yeah,
remodeling. So
exactly.
they're
Yeah,
only they're only having maybe 50 leads a week coming in total.
yeah,
And one whoever's there is handling it. So it's
yeah.
not like they need three seats of this.
Right. No, and they can utilize one and they can see what insights they can gather and how to quickly fix it. Yeah, it works at any scale. That's what makes it easy. Three or a volume is really where we kind of start seeing the big
Yeah, I mean,
impact.
and
But
again, it's
if
gonna
you're
it's gonna
one,
make a difference, right? Because if you got an
right.
HVAC company, they could be doing the exact same $10 million, but they probably have five, six, seven, eight CSRs.
Right. Well, and with home remodeling, like you said, the ticket price is so high, and that's why home remodeling has been such an easy sell for us because at 299 a month, with your ticket price, with your ticket, let's say is 15K. I mean, you miss, 20% of those. That's quite a bit of a revenue that you could have had if you just knew what you were doing wrong.
Okay. So what kind of reporting is this going to give me? So there's a dashboard with the CSRs. What about on the like actual, hey, here's what you need to do side of things? What does that look like?
So we have kind of three views. We have your more overall executive view, where if you're the owner or an executive and we have companies who use this more in like a daily huddle or a weekly company meeting or something like that. It's your overarching view, right? Your set rate, the top issues, the top CSRs that are struggling and the ones that are doing great. That's kind of your overall view if you want just a snapshot. We then have a much more in-depth performance and calls tab. That's where your call center manager lives, or they should be living, where there's insights for every call. You can go deeper into each call to understand. You can listen to it if you so wish, but we show you insights in depth, right? I mean, if anybody is interested in learning more of what this looks like, please sign up for a demo. We'll be happy to show you in depth how that would look like for your home improvement or
All right,
home
I'm going to share
services.
your screen here. This is your website, Lace AI, turn more calls into revenues, jobs, etc. So just go here, hit book a demo, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, there we go. Book a demo, fill out the information, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
Yep.
That's it, huh?
It's very simple. We'll reach out to you immediately. We'll make it as actionable as possible. We'll show you what it looks like. You'll get to immediately understand where the value comes from. And, we'll be excited to hear you. Wow, this is so cool. I don't know why I wasn't doing this before.
Do you record your own calls to see how you're doing?
Well, we don't have, we actually do actually record our calls, but we use Gone for our own, but we've toyed with the idea of doing that. But again, our goal, right, is home improvement and home remodeling. We
Okay.
want it to be useful for
I was
that.
just joking.
No, no, we have joked with, for the sales team, utilizing it internally.
Okay. Anything else that people need to know about this? I think I've exhausted all my questions.
No, I'm excited to, anybody listening, make sure you focus on that middle sector, right? Everybody cares about leads. Everybody wants a better set rate. How do you get there is that middle black box that nobody wants to look at because it's such a mess. It's not a mess. We can easily show you that data. It's your revenue you already have. We just help you see where it comes from.
All right. Katya, thank you so much for your time. Lace AI, go hit the book a demo button, fill it out, set a time, and figure this out. I know you guys are going to be participating in our Operation Lead Surge conference in September,
Yes, we're
and
excited. Very
that
excited.
that conference has three modules, or what we call missions, because it has kind of a military theme. The first one is foundation building. The second one is lead gen. Third one is right in your wheelhouse. It is lead conversion. And the first part of lead conversion is making sure that they set. The second part is making sure that the sets
Electric.
sell. So I'm thrilled that you'll be there because this is a really, really important tool. You know, if I've been in this industry a long time, about 20 years at this point, and if you go back 20 years in time and you say, okay, you need to improve your set rate, it was really hard. I mean, it's like,
Yep.
okay, George, Linda, figure it out, get the
Yep.
whip out, crack it, train. This is so much better. So I'm,
Yep.
I'm so excited for this. It takes that section in our conference and it just condenses like, hey, how about this? Use this tool. There you
Yeah.
go.
Try
Give us a
it.
demo.
Try it. Try it. See what it looks like for your company, and I promise your conversations will be a lot smoother.
All right, Kaya, thank you so much. Appreciate
Yeah.
you, and I'm sure I'll see you in a couple weeks at the Fast Remodeler,
Fast.
actually next
Yeah.
week. All righty,
Thank
bye
you.
bye.
Thank you for having me.